Our number has just escaped the device. It traveled down a wire and arrived at a small gray box mounted in a cabinet on the wall. This box is called a data logger, and it's the first place in our journey where someone or something starts making decisions about our data. A data logger does three things. It asks, it remembers, and it forwards. It asks by polling every device on site, sometimes a dozen, sometimes a few hundred, every few seconds. It's the only thing on site that talks to everyone. Inverters from different brands, meters, weather stations, our pyranometer. It remembers because the connection to the outside world is not always there. Cellular signal drops, routers reboot, so the data logger stores everything locally for days, sometimes months, long enough that an outage doesn't mean lost data. And it forwards, sending everything upstream when the connection is good. If the link was down for a while, it replays the backlog. That's the difference between a monitoring system you can trust and one full of mysterious gaps. But here's what the data logger really is. It's not a pipe, it's an editor. The devices on site produce far more readings than anyone upstream wants to receive. A device polled every 5 seconds produces hundreds of values an hour. Most monitoring systems want one value every 5 or 15 minutes. So the data logger bundles. Many readings go in, one comes out. And how it bundles is a decision. Average them, sum them, take the last one, keep the highest. The right answer depends on what kind of number it is. And choosing wrong produces values that look perfectly plausible and are completely meaningless. We'll dig into those rules later in the series. But there's a bigger decision hiding inside the bundling. How much resolution to keep at all? And this one is worth pausing on because the world is changing underneath it. For years, the assumption was that 5 or 15-minute data is plenty. And for most plants doing the thing most operators do, glancing at a dashboard to check if the plant is healthy, it generally is. You don't need second-by-second data to see yesterday's production curve. But that assumption is starting to break. Predictive maintenance, catching a failure before it happens, often depends on tiny, short-lived patterns that a 15-minute average erases completely. Batteries move on timescales solar never did, charging, discharging, responding to the grid within seconds. Average that over 15 minutes and you have moved away the entire behavior you wanted to see. And here's the trap. You can't go back and get resolution you already threw away. If a plant logs 15-minute data today, and in 2 years you want to deploy predictive maintenance or add a battery, the high resolution history you need simply doesn't exist. It was discarded in real time by a config decision nobody thought to revisit. What matters today is simpler. Once the bundle is made and sent, the original readings are usually gone. Whoever looks at this data next month or in 6 years is looking at decisions this little box made in real time in a cabinet in a field somewhere. There's no going back behind them. Here's the thing I keep asking myself at this stop. Who decided what got kept? And would I even know what was dropped? The data logger's configuration decides everything. Which devices get polled and how often. Which values get bundled and how. What gets a timestamp from a synced clock and what gets a timestamp by a clock that's been quietly drifting for months. None of those decisions travel with the data. The number arrives upstream looking clean and confident. Nothing about it says I'm an average of 60 readings or I'm an average of just 12 because the connection kept dropping. Nothing says whose clock stamped me or whether that clock was right. On the edge, the device knew everything about its own readings. One stop later, the wire stripped the meaning. Now, 2 stops in, the readings themselves have been replaced by summaries. And the recipe for those summaries stays behind in a config file inside the box. So our number, born in a sensor, pulled down a wire, has now been bundled with thousands of others, stamped with a time and packaged for the journey ahead. Next stop, leaving the site entirely. Cellular networks, the longest leg of the trip. That's next time.